Hi everyone, it's Kathy. Thank you so much for joining me. Today I'll be creating a Valentine's Day card that's suitable for a boy. And I found that Whimsy Stamps has a stamp set called A Boy's Dream, which I thought would be really cute to combine it with the Floating Hearts Cling stamp and create a galaxy background. Anyway, I started out by stamping this cute little guy and his spaceship onto a piece of Cougar Super Smooth cardstock with Copic friendly ink. I started to color him in and I used YG05 and I added that the areas where the shadows would be the darkest. Then I blended that out with YG03 and then I finished up with YG01. I'll be sure to have all of the colors as well as all of the products that I used listed in the description box below for you. And then for the spaceship, I started out with C1 and added that on the outer edges and then underneath the little rims of the spaceship, I guess that's what it's called. And then I blended that out with C0. For the controllers for our little guy to fly his spaceship, I started with B06 and I also added that along the rim around his body and then the main rim around the little spaceship. Then I blended that out with B04 and then I realized that I forgot to do the very bottom rim of the spaceship, so I did that with the B06 and B04 as well. For the little lights that go across the spaceship, I did the rings with the B06 and then I colored in the lights with YG01. To create my background, I started with a piece of cardstock that measures 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. I did some very random ink blending and I started out with my lightest color, which is a mint green. Then I moved on to a nice bright blue, and while I was doing the ink blending, I started with my lightest color to put that down first. Then I went around the mint green with the blue. When I came in with the purple ink, I was being very mindful not to get it too close to the green because I didn't want to end up with mud. After I was done ink blending with the purple ink, I came in with a nice bright pink ink and filled in the white spaces and did a little bit more blending around the purple. I spritzed my hand with some water and did some water droplets on my panel. And then I decided to add some shimmer because a galaxy should have shimmer as well. Then I decided that I needed to have some white splatter, so I used my Zig cartoonist pen and just put that on an acrylic block and splattered that as well. I made sure that the panel was completely dry and I did speed that process along with my heat tool. Then I placed it into my MISTI. I used a little bit of removable adhesive on the back side of that panel so that it would stay in place. And then I inked up the Floating Hearts Cling stamp with VersaFine Onyx Black ink and stamped it right over my ink blended background. Now I did stamp this image a couple of times because my VersaFine Onyx Black ink is a very old ink pad and I either need to get a new one or just refill it. But I wanted to make sure that I had a really nice dark impression of that stamp, so I did stamp it a couple of times. I trimmed it down with my paper trimmer. There's a very fine border that goes around the floating hearts, so I just followed those lines as guide to trim it down. Then I came in with a small ink blending brush and blackjack ink to darken up the edges of my galaxy. I decided to use the blackjack ink because it's a much softer black. It kind of reminds me of the Distress Oxide Black Soot. It's not such a dark black. And then I used a small ink blending brush so that I could darken up a little bit in between those hearts. After I was done with that, I decided that I needed yet even more white splatter. So I added a little bit more to that ink blended panel. Off camera, I used the Grass and Cloud Edger die set to cut a scrap of white cardstock into that cloud shape. Then I stamped the word "You are out of this world." I used my tape runner just to adhere that little cloud panel to the front of my galaxy panel, and it's hanging off the edge. I did cut that larger because I wasn't quite sure where the placement was going to be. I trimmed off the excess with my scissors. Then I put a whole bunch of foam tape on the back side of that panel and adhered that to the front of my card base, which is a top folding A2 size card. Once I had that in place, of course, I had to add foam tape to my little guy in the spaceship, and I added him to the front of the card. And to finish it up, I added some holographic gems just randomly around the sentiment, and then I added a couple to my galaxy background as well. And I thought it needed one more little thing, so I used my Nuvo crystal glaze and added that over the lights on his little spaceship. And that's it. That finishes up my card for today. Thank you so much for joining me. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up. If you've not yet subscribed, we'd love it if you would. And don't forget to ring the bell so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.